In 1936, Everett Carpenter, who ran a gas station that was once located on Main Street, where Chipman's property is now, was a selectman. His brother was a judge, Sidney Carpenter, and he was also a selectman. Everett married Lillian, who later married Johnson, Walter Johnson, after the death of Everett. Notice the property near the Federated Church in the background is the old Murphy home. Now we have the Hampden County prisoners. They're being taken to Springfield, and we see that the prisoners are entering the bus. There are 3 buses, and some of the dignitaries are there, and among them would be Jeremiah Dacey. He had lived across the street from the prison. I believe there's a fence there located along the right side of where these buses are stopped. The last of the prisoners are being loaded onto the bus. I think you can see the fence along the side. I'm not sure whether this big man shown there was Mr. Dacey or not, but I know that he was a big man. Now we see the trap. The doors will open. They lift it up, and the buses will be exiting. The bonfire was built in City Mills. We have Sweat's property. They have a field day there, and that was in the front lawn of the Sweat's property. The ladies are selling jellies and jams and food. Maybe somebody recognizes some of these people. And you can see in the background where the Lord and Jellis was located. Notice the man in the top hat. In those days, the ladies wore hats. And there are ladies selling pies here. And we will see a long line of people that will be lining up for a meal shortly. I don't think we have people with the line that long anymore waiting for food. If you notice the road in the background, that lawn came right down to where the City Mills Pond is now. And because the trees were taken down in order to make the new road, Mr. Sweat was angry, and he had an issue with the selectmen. And he therefore had his house taken down, and he moved to Rentham. And the Sweat Fund is now what Rentham has because He wanted to give it to Norfolk, but being so angry, he did not do that. The Memorial Day Parade in 1937 was at Sullivan's Corner, and you can see Walker's Barn in the background. They had the World War I veterans. The band, not sure where that was, where the band came from. They are making the corner on Seekonk Street at Sullivan's Corner. This is on Main Street, heading towards Seekonk. The World War I veterans and behind them we will see the Scouts. The nurses first, I guess. These were the nurses. Children are bringing wildflowers to be placed on the veteran's grave. I don't know what that sign up on the hill was, and I'm not quite sure what is located there now, but it would have been across from the corner. There was a gas station across from Sullivan's house. We have the school bus trip from the center school. Chief Campbell operated it. And that's the chief with his daughter Lois. We have election day here, and this was held at the Grange Hall. And we have the Chief Campbell coming out, talking to a gentleman I hope somebody can recognize. And the town clerk on the left, Mr. Campbell, no relation. George was no relation to the chief. There's Maddie Phelan. Here comes Ara Tashin in the doorway, very dapper. This gentleman, I wish I knew who he was. Somebody may know. Walter Holmes exiting in the middle, the doorway. And there is Stub Campbell in the center. George Campbell, he was our town clerk. And again, Maddie Phelan in the middle. This was the 4th of July celebration, and this was held at the Federated Church. The sign was outside the man's store, later became St. Jude's Chapel, and that is where Country Crossing is now. have the band in the background, and you can see man's store beyond that. And I don't know who the twirler was, but she's pretty good. This is the um, pole that they greased, and you will see that there was a reward on the top. It was a dollar bill. If you could climb that pole, you got the dollar bill. In the background, you could see the automobiles and the field. I believe this was near where the police station is now, the field near the police station. It's tough going when you have a greased pole to climb. Well, I guess he didn't make it either. There are also pony rides, as you'll see one in the background. Another one will come along. Arthur Bawley, tall and tanned, and he gets the reward. Change was put into a pile of sawdust to be found by the children. As you can see them milling around. In those days, the girls wore dresses. There were no dungarees or shorts. They were dresses, and many times they wore big bows in their hair. This is Ed Hale announcing the proceedings, which he often did. He was once a selectman for our town. And at one time he had a contest for the mayor of 1970 celebration. These are the gentlemen at the ball game, the married men against the single men, and the onlookers. The rolling pin contest. The real swinging women. Some of them threw and then they ducked. Which one was Alice? I don't know, but she later married Charlie Moore and lived on the corner of Main and Tucker Road. I'm sorry, she lived on the corner of Rockwood Road and Tucker Road. That was a good throw. I wonder if that was Alice. Poor Charlie wouldn't have had a chance. We have the popcorn stand here. Now the hog calling contest, and that was Olga Sachs calling. Matt Phelan and onlookers. Olga is going to be on the left of these people, and she'll be in a short sleeved jacketed dress, white short sleeved jacketed dress. She was the winner right there with the dark blouse. And this is the back of the church coming up with the tents and the stands. The clam bake, that was taken at the old fire station that later became the town hall on Main Street, the big gray building. Recreation now uses this. And it's also used parking beside it for residents for the train. You see the doors that once housed the fire engines. Altogether looks different now, doesn't it? There's Art Nispel on the right. He was the organist and the choir director at St. Jude's and also played at the Clonmel Arms. He had one withered arm. In the middle of that picture was Eric Tashin. And there he is again. I don't know who the two women were. Here he is bringing out Doris Carr. Doris was married to George Carr, who was a fireman and a custodian at the school at one time. There's Doris again. Now we go to the main street and, and see that they were fixing up this bridge and putting up poles. This was looking toward the town center. And you can see Hal Fay's house on the right, which is no longer there. Mrs. Fay taught music, and he had a gas station on that property. Now the land was bought, and Walgreens is going up in that locality. And you shall see that the bridge is going to look toward the old Dupree, which was later Frank Gross's house, and you see the railroad tracks that's going on to Rockwood Road. Jim Burbridge, he operated this mill for many years, and you will see he's wearing an apron that says Hills Lumber Company. Now, Hills Lumber Company once was located on Main Street, across from St. Jude's. The old bandstand material was bought from the Hills Lumber Company. It's quite a procedure cutting those logs. And as this was on Lake Street, which is now a community of many houses. Memorial Day Parade, another one where the band has uniforms that are similar to the old brass band uniforms of Norfolk. There are 48 stars on the flag. And Civil War and World War I veterans are marching in this parade. And I believe we shall see Austin and Malcolm Green marching. And they would be in Army uniforms. Well, I guess, let's see. Maybe somebody recognizes some of these people. This is still at Sullivan's Corner with the big barn that is no longer there. And here comes Malcolm Green. These are the nurses. And then after the nurses, you'll see the campfire girls. Another band. And the Boy Scouts. We have the Girl Scouts. And after that, there will be the children bringing the flowers to the graves, and you'll see Miss Olive Day will be on the left, wearing sort of a light-colored dress. And here they come with their flags and their flowers. They had quite a doll carriage parade. Many of them in Norfolk at one time, and Doris Carr, she was in charge. Crepe paper was very popular use for these decorations. And there's Mrs. Carr on the left in the white dress. And a little girl that seems to be awed by all of these carriages. It's Doris leading another carriage. Some of these, I'm sure, were winners, and I believe that today there are youngsters that remember this and probably joined in. These are some of the booth scenes. And there's Mr. Hale again at the mic. We're back in 1949 at the Grange Hall, and we shall see them coming out of the hall after voting. Ed Hale on the right. The man in the middle looks so familiar, but I don't know who he is. That's Ted Weaver in the tan coat exiting. Ted was once a selectman in town, and he also worked in the assessor's office. And we see Donald Lang putting on his coat, coming out of the building. This woman looks familiar, but I wish somebody would know who she is. And there's Doris Carr in the dark coat exiting. This is Mickey Campbell, the chief's son, wearing his policeman's uniform. Does anybody know who this gentleman is with the newspaper? He's in many of the films. And here we have a lady with a beautiful fur coat. And this is Walter Holmes on the left with one of the greens. I don't know whether it's Malcolm or Austin. Dot Campbell on the left. She was a daughter of the police chief, and she was our dispatcher for many years. And that's Dorothy again. And this is George Carr, who married Doris. Man. And there's that gentleman again. Maybe somebody knows who he was. Looks like Helmy Murray and her husband George. Maybe somebody knows whether that is true or not. Now we come to, which was once the smallest post office in the United States. This was located at City Mills. And the children in front of the post office was taken after the burnout May 30th of 1949. And there is Mickey. There's Mickey Campbell again. The gas station that we shall see was once located on Park Street, over the bridge on the right. And this is again in front of this, but this is the gas station. And Frances Hamlin was acting postmistress at the time of the burnout. And this Canning's filling station, as it was called, was used temporarily for the post office. People really enjoyed going to the post office because it was really a tourist attraction. Here is a gentleman entering the filling station. There's a house there now. I believe it's built from the gas station. The postmistress was ill at the time, so Mrs. Hamlin took over. I don't know where this was taken, but this is an unknown locality, I guess. A plane crash occurred on Sweets Field. There was mention somewhere that it was called Scouts Field at a time, but I don't know if that is true. Norfolk had an airport near Leland Road, and perhaps this pilot was either trying to fly into it or out of it. The crash occurred nearby, I believe, the barns in Sweets, and you'll see them later on in the background. That's quite a wreck. Believe it or not, the pilot survived this crash. I believe he was alone also in this. And they're loading him onto a stretcher to be put in the ambulance, which looks a lot like the old bakery trucks they used to have years ago. I don't know how he could have survived. You can see Sweet's barns way back in the background, and you can see the silo between the police here. These state policemen. There's the barn showing in the background. Palm Sunday at the Grange Hall. St. Jude's held masses here from 1947 until Mann's store was purchased from the Boston Archdiocese and by the Boston Archdiocese, and a chapel was built in the old store. This is Buddy Allen coming out in the brown suit right here. The barn in the background is no longer here. That building beyond it is an apartment building at once owned by Cronin. This gentleman with the palms, I believe, is Louis Mariani. Now, Louis served as an usher at the church. He was also the dump keeper. He had a store at Mirror Lake. The services at Federated Church, I believe it's Palm Sunday here. Walter Holmes exiting, placing his hand on the young boy's head. Barbara Stone and Shirley Evans. Barbara is now in Evans, and Shirley was married to Alan Mackey, who was a selectman and former registrar of motor vehicles. Palms are being carried out, potted. In the doorway we see the Reverend Arthur Samuelson with his red robe. Now we go on to the First Communion at the Grange Hall. And these are the Sisters of Mercy from Cumberland, Rhode Island. And the little boys and girls receiving after they've received their First Communion.